Well, it is 6 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and start this public meeting. I will introduce folks that are up here. My name is Jay Christensen. I am the current mayor of Harlan. To my right is Gene Geddes, city administrator. To my left, far left, Bryce Shelby, board of supervisors, and right next to me is Neil Gross, the sheriff of Shelby County. I appreciate everybody coming. This is the purpose of why we are here, because we're considering unifying law enforcement with the sheriff to provide coverage for the city and the county as it is now. And I say we, myself, the mayor, the city council, the city, we acknowledge this is an important topic. This is an important department. This is an important part of our team. Has been for, I grew up here, my lifetime. I've known a couple of the chiefs. I've known quite a few of the officers. Most of my life I knew them from the outside, and then I became involved in this as far as city council 8 years ago. Now as the mayor, so then get to know more on the inside of things. And we understand that, I understand these are people that they work hard at what they do, and they get up every morning and make sure that when somebody has to call a phone number 911, we expect them to show up. And for years we've watched that, and they've done a great job. They continue to do a great job. I would say, I would acknowledge the current staff we have right now. I would thank them for what they've done. Because of why we're here to talk about this. The purpose of this meeting is to acknowledge, kind of what we've talked about and what we're thinking about, and what it would look like if this would happen. Some expectations, some benefits, and also to acknowledge comments from the public, and to receive questions from the public. And we may not have all the answers. I'm not a professional, mayor, overseer of what's going on, but I will tell you I'm very passionate, and I do care about, where I live and who works for the city of Harlan and how that's carried out. With that, I will turn it over to Gene Geddes and then Neil Gross to provide some background, some overview as far as some of the things that have been discussed. And then we will open it up to questions, and I'll get to that. I'll let Gene speak and Neil, and I'll talk about that, some of the formats, some of the ground rules with questions and things, how we're going to try to do that. The number of people that are here, there needs to be some ground rules. Just because people want to ask questions, if you want to ask a question, we want to make sure you do that. I don't want you to have to be here until 2 o'clock in the morning asking your question. So there will be some limits on time. So we'll get to that when we walk through some of these scenarios while we're here. So I'll turn it over to Gene Geddes, the city administrator.
Thank you, Mayor. And I know there's some folks online as well as all of you here. I'm going to hold the mic here. Can everybody hear me fine and back? Good. Give me a thumbs up. Better? Yeah. Okay, that's better. Thank you. Echo what Mayor Christensen said. First and foremost, appreciation to the officers for the Harlan Police Department, as well as the support, which has existed for years, folks. Let's not acknowledge that the two agencies that exist in Shelby County and Harlan have worked hand in hand informally for years. That's gone on. We've been blessed in that regard. The current teams, and again, those that are with the city of Harlan, it's no surprise, at least if you've been within the 4 walls or within the city, and this team has gone through a lot. Yet, what's not wavered is dedicated 24/7 coverage. And through just discussions, interactions I have with those in the public, it's been reassuring that, I didn't realize anything was going on. Depends on which, yet, again, appreciation to the team that is with the city of Harlan again, and also with the sheriff's office. We do work well. I mean, one of the reasons we can even come to this stage and have a discussion like this is that historically, our public entities in Shelby County work quite well together. I know those in my role or other public roles that go to statewide meetings. I've heard some of our former chiefs, I've heard people from other agencies, and they talk about and they hear how we work together in Shelby County, and they're just amazed. That doesn't make this session, or be good, bad, or indifferent, but we are blessed in that regard, and again, supports why we could come to a point like this to have this kind of discussion and evaluation. With that, we wouldn't be here. But again, appreciation to our law enforcement teams. Speaking of our law enforcement teams, a majority of our existing teams, if unification under one agency, one leadership with dedicated coverage were to come to fruition, that the majority of the teams serving us today do look forward to this. So I wouldn't say it's 100%. I don't know that I've worked in many entities where you've got 100% in favor of any one thing, but I will tell you the majority of those that are protecting you day and night right now are in support of what this could look like. And then another thought as I think times like this is that naturally people don't lean into or look forward to change. And it's great to see this much interest because it should be. Certainly in my time in the administrator role, public safety, be that through EMS, police, fire. I don't do those. I'm not out there in the field. Do I have responsibility and oversight? Certainly I do. If things aren't working, how can we do it better? Even if they are working, can we do it better, more effectively, more efficiently? I'm not naive to the fact that I'm not in this for a popularity contest, folks, believe me. I wouldn't be in the role if it was all about popularity. People are entitled to their opinions, yet what I believe the elected officials and what our constituents want is for someone at least to be open to evaluating other options and knowing when we do have problems. I'm going to touch on three things and just get it out right away. Maybe on some people's minds. I've had some individual discussions. I'm not a social media guru. I'm not a keyboard warrior. Yet I'm aware of some of the stuff that's been going on. So I thought just by touching, just addressing 2 or 3 of those items just right out of the chute may help understand. So why are we here? Why? And times are different. Not only here in Harlan and Shelby County, but the state of Iowa and nationally, times are different. And for us to bury our head in the sand and acknowledge also what's been going on, I don't think is the right way to approach it. So we're here to address a problem, but it's not only happening here. There's some uniquenesses here without a doubt. The Harlan Police Department has struggled with recruiting and retaining staff for various reasons, and we'll touch on some of those. Yet we're not immune and we're not the only one. It doesn't mean that, we can just hide on it, it's real. So nationally, statewide, and we follow those similar trends. And it's in many industries. I'm looking at a few business leaders and owners around here, how difficult it is to find and retain staff and quality staff. Similar in this field. Depends on which, I've gone to a few sites in the last week, and it depends on what you might Google or go look at. Yet various sources I've looked at, anywhere from 80 to 90 agencies in Iowa at this time are looking to fill law enforcement positions. Depends on, again, which site you go to or where you look at. I'm also aware that, and I've heard from former chiefs here and otherwise, and even our own department, that when you used to have a posting for a position, you might see 20, 30, 40 applications. don't see that anywhere close today. And again, that's just not our agency, that's the trend. So, and we're experiencing that. We've had an open posting for 3 to 4 months, and it's been slim pickings. So let's acknowledge it. That's why we're here. And we're not immune to what's happening elsewhere. Yet we've got some uniquenesses. Other areas of Iowa, what this could look like, it exists elsewhere. Some towns our size, towns smaller than us, and towns larger than us that have one agency that serve their county. Recently, Monona County and Ottawa went to the structure. There are spoken with communities in central Iowa that are between 8 and 10,000, so larger than us, and the city of Grimes, which has exploded, and they continue to see dedicated coverage through Polk County. And we say, well, that's because they're in the rural. It doesn't matter, it's the same concept. So this does exist elsewhere. That's why, again, we're here to explain it and talk about it. Second item, I want to just get right out there that, well, if this happens, how could we have, we're not going to be taken care of in Harlan. So with the concept and this idea that there will be, the sheriff's office, sheriff, you've got 10 positions, 11? So it wouldn't be those existing, the same 11 staff now being asked to cover Harlan. There will be a minimum 6 additional staff brought into one agency that will continue to provide dedicated coverage 24/7 in Harlan. If that wasn't the case, I wouldn't be sitting here. I wouldn't recommend, it would be wise for us to consider that. I believe that's a concern. I've heard it, but again, just to get it out there, that there will be additional positions at minimum of 6, and then we continue 24/7 coverage in Harlan. And then the third item, again, just to get it right out there, that, well, there's been lots of meetings behind closed doors. So let me, so I reflect on that, and as a good business, as a good organization, to get to this point, which is wonderful to see this many interested individuals, which it should be, for us to come here and not have any background information and what ifs, how might it look, could it look, financially does it make sense? I don't think we would want it. I wouldn't recommend that. So have there been meetings behind closed doors? Absolutely not. If there's any question as to our governing body, we are very transparent. We are fully committed to adhering to open meetings laws. Yet between agencies, not elected bodies, have the sheriff and I talked? You bet. Have we had a few of our elected officials talk? You bet. But there have been no meetings behind closed doors. Yet I would expect, all of you out there would expect that we come to this type of session with some information. That's why we're here. Made a few notes, so just wanted to be sure with these important topics that I'm not overlooking anything. Okay, we do have, so this reflects on, or touches on some of the items I just spoke to. So that's the overview, kind of why we got here. There's lots of contributing factors as to why we're sitting down here and some of the trends that we've been seeing. And once again, there are many pros and cons to this. And again, change is not something naturally we all gravitate towards. As I believe the mayor had stated, do we have everything figured out? Absolutely not. Through public input, if there are things that we need to give further consideration to, that will be very valuable. Additionally, if this concept were to move forward, it requires both governing bodies. So Bryce representing the Board of Supervisors, we have a 3-person county Board of Supervisors, as well as a 6-person council and mayor. Both governing bodies would need to agree to this. It would be through a contract and a partnership of services in which the city would partner with the county to make that happen. Yet that doesn't happen unless both governing entities, this isn't a one-sided deal, right? And again, we wouldn't be here unless both entities were at least open to it. And we thought that there would be more benefits than drawbacks. Okay? Dovetail into, as we've been considering this, what might be, could be some of the improvements or positives from this. And I think this is where the sheriff and I will maybe tag team here a little bit. This operation, if it were unified, it would be led under the sheriff's department. There would be, I believe we have benefits with 1 command staff versus 2 command staffs. Would offer opportunities for specialization positions through a larger department. So just think about any organization, you gain efficiencies and opportunities through scale. And both organizations would benefit from this because the scale would be larger in terms of personnel. And through that, you can become more specialized. Sharing information, again, we've been blessed that through many agencies and entities in Shelby County, we do work well together, we do share information. In law enforcement, having one investigating agency versus 2 investigating agencies. Having everyone on the same command staff and information structure, we would believe there would be better sharing information. 1 team, 1 office, all be under 1 operation. See where we're at here. I'm going to give the sheriff some time to speak to these items, because if this were consolidated, would be under the sheriff's leadership. Safer for all. Again, I don't carry a gun and a badge, and I know those that do. They're putting their lives on the line night and day. And safety is a paramount. And I believe we can also all recognize that our country has changed quite a bit in the last 3, 5, 7 years. Right? And we'd like to say, well, not here in Shelby County, not here in Harlan. Safety is still paramount. It could happen anywhere, anytime. Thus, having law enforcement that they can consistently have each other's back, or doing it safely, I believe that would be further enhanced through this as well. If we go to the next 3 areas, or the next 2 areas actually, that'd be great. Presently, the agencies operate out of 2 facilities. The idea would be to continue to operate out of those 2 facilities. So obviously with an increased staff from 11 to 17 or 18, so there will continue to be office space, interview space at what we know as City Hall, but that would become sheriff's space as well as the current sheriff's office. So that's how that would be handled. And then one of the changes that happened, I believe this is the first full year of our full-time SRO sheriff. And again, another change that's happened in the past few years and has come to fruition this year is there is a full-time school resource officer in the schools. And feedback that I'm aware of, and if there's any, feel free to comment on this if you're making public comment. Yeah, my understanding is, and I believe through the sheriff's office and talking with the school, it's been a huge asset. It's also resulted in not as much of a requirement to have other law enforcement at school. I know, looking to my right here, with our former chief and assistant chief, and presently both entities still spend some time in school, but not near as much as before by having a full-time presence there. So that's been a benefit. And it's not been as much of a demand on staff like could make something like this work. And then lastly, an item I would comment on is through this, we expect this based upon, a question has been put out there, how will this impact my taxes? and this might be from both the county and county side, county taxpayer as well as the city taxpayer. This is a cost neutral, so there would be no impact to taxes. And one of the items that I'm going to reference to the council, and what we're proposing if this were to move forward, is we would have bring on a dedicated code enforcement, nuisance, and property maintenance person, property maintenance oversight in Harlan. That would be a city of Harlan employee, which would not have that in the past. So this would, and with that, it would still be a cost neutral and no impact to taxes. And with that, I'll turn it over to the sheriff to expand on a few of those items and how he would envision or some of his thoughts on a unified operation.
Appreciate it, Gene. You stole most of my thunder, but there's a little bit left in it. First off, this conversation happened, and I feel like it needed to happen, but it happened because I feel like the city of Harlan is being proactive to a global issue. You spoke a little bit on it, Gene, about what's happening across, not only the state of Iowa, but our country, as far as the lack of recruitment in law enforcement. And looking at Sergeant Butler right here, we've hired recently, and our application process has also decreased. So it's not just a Harlan problem, it's an us problem, and it continues across the globe. So I think that's important to point out. With that being said, I'll kind of pick up where he left off a little bit. With the enforcement positions coming under one house, under one unit, as one team, as we like to say, at the sheriff's office, I think the information sharing across that we're currently having to share from one department to another to work on investigations together, because we do that every day anyways, will become much better, much more fluent, much more efficient. I think we can deliver a better product to the citizens of Harlan and the citizens of Shelby County in doing that. And that's kind of what we're after. We want to deliver a better product, and that product is your safety and our ability to solve the crimes that happen within the county. Recruitment ability for hiring, I don't know if you're down there a little bit yet. I think that would increase exponentially. We would move from an 11-man department to a 17 or 18-man department. And with that, you would have room for growth within the department. Gene touched on it a little bit, but when we get hired as deputies, or you get hired as a police officer in these smaller agencies, that's kind of where you're going to be. I mean, unless the chief or assistant chief retires, there's not a lot of room for growth. And although we are somewhat militaristic, people like to work up a chain. They like to know that what they're doing is being seen by their superiors, and that someday they can move up a chain and have room for growth in the department. The way I envision this, as one team with 17, 18 staff members, we can have steps for growth within the department. We can have specialty positions, such as an investigator, which also comes back to quality product. I mean, if you've got somebody that is an investigator, one or two within a department or an office, I think you solve more cases. You put somebody on that case, and they stick with it to the end. We're not passing it through from officer to officer because one individual took a week vacation and we had nobody to cover that. Unfortunately, that's what we see at our small offices currently. Someone takes vacation, someone else has got to pick it up. I think with a larger agency working as one unit, you won't have that lack or that gap that I kind of spoke to. Currently, we are blessed in the sheriff's office. We have a large number of instructors in a lot of different variety of categories. I think that will be cost effective under one roof, utilizing those instructors to train within. I think as a larger agency, we can host trainings and we can keep trainings in-house and help keep money in the taxpayers' pockets. We do some high-risk stuff in Shelby County and in Harlan. We work together on that currently with the Harlan Police Department, and I think we can get better at that as one larger agency as well. When we first started talking about this, Gene, the conversation was brought up. We did have conversations back and forth. Was it behind closed doors? No. I was very open with my office and my staff. We hosted an office meeting. I said, guys, Harlan Police Department currently has 4 full-time officers on the department. They're an 8-man. I said, I'm seeing the effects, because we are one team already. We just have a different name. I said, I'm seeing the effects right now of our patrol deputies spending a little bit more time in the city of Harlan. That's not a knock to the city of Harlan as far as officers go. They're short-staffed. We're not gonna leave somebody stranded, and they're not gonna leave us stranded. If we need help out in the county, they come out and help us, because we've got one, maybe two people on every shift. We can bump those numbers up to the lawyer staff. But our numbers started to decrease for our town time out in the county, and I was more than open to have this conversation with Gene, because I feel like it's gonna benefit both sides of the fence. So it is an issue that we're seeing on our side, but it's an issue that I think we can overcome together, and that's why these conversations have happened. Conversations had to happen so that we can give you answers today for what we foresee as a future, as a possible solution to some of these. But this is just us. I don't have a lot more. Gene took most of it, but I think if we unify between city and county and work together, I think we can see at least a cost-neutral program moving forward with a ton of benefits that I think will better serve the public. So I appreciate you guys coming out tonight.
A couple of additional comments that the sheriff spoke and wanted to bring attention to that I neglected earlier. Again, this is not a new discussion, as it was touched on the overview slide, as well as I believe the article in the newspaper, and thank you for that coverage this week, that over the past 2 decades, this topic has come up formally at least twice. And I believe a couple decades ago, it was dropped just due to the fact that it wouldn't achieve cost savings. Completely understand that, but this is not a new topic, and it's it's ebbed and flowed, and here we find ourselves for various reasons. So I'm also aware there are other entities, and not just Ottawa and Winona that recently did this, yet there are 4 or 5 other communities that are watching what we're doing and or evaluating doing something similar. Sharing and being open to change with sharing. Again, Harlan used to have its own, the Harlan Police Department, and I'm not sure how many decades ago, had their own dispatch. That's been consolidated for a couple, 3, 4 decades now. Shelby, we currently have a private ambulance service, which is EMS, and there's a lot of changes going on there as well. Yet, Shelby County, the hospital, and the city of Harlan currently partner and contract out for ambulance service to be more efficient. Schools have had to think differently, share programs, share students for certain classes, so that's been happening. So this concept and topic is far from brand new, yet it's an uncomfortable one. And I clearly get it. It's not been the most enjoyable last 6 to 10 months from my seat, yet to just put our head in the sand, or put my head in the sand and not address what's going on, I don't believe has been the right answer. As the sheriff commented on, there have been times we've been short-staffed. We have never left the city of Harlan without coverage. Yet, again, appreciation for our current officers. And I know most of you are here. They've been putting in a lot of time. And that's really appreciated. A few of them, as I'm looking to the back there, as they've looked at me and said, well, God, it'd be nice to have a day off. How can we? And they found ways. We've got some part-time. Appreciate Sergeant Peterson, who's here. He's been making things work. We've got a few part-time certified officers that have helped out, and is providing some time off. Yet not near what it could look like, as the sheriff mentioned, just because of economies of scale and efficiencies, to be more accommodating as an employer. And then the last comment is, go back and look at our census countywide, and Shelby County used to be 16,000 population. I think last census where Shelby County is under 12,000. So 25% decrease in population. And to think that things should be looked at or be considered for change, I think we're kidding ourselves. So be aware of the trends. Again, it doesn't make it right, it doesn't make it any easier, yet that's another trend and reason that is different than it was 2 decades ago. Thank you. Go ahead, Mayor.
Thank you both for a little bit of insight and background. Now we're going to move into the questions part of this. We'll open it up. For this part, I want you to come to the podium, state your name, and if you have a question or comment, we're going to try and limit this to 3, 4, 5 minutes. Because there's a lot of people here. So everybody wants to get up and say something. We want to be courteous to allow people to do that. I don't want one person to dominate for an hour, so we're going to stand up and shoo you away. But to be courteous to people that, if you want to get up, stand behind the person and stand there, that's fine. But if somebody gets up there and speaks and then they sit down, how you want to do it. But we will open it up to questions. As I make sure you state your name. The people that are online, if they would type their question into the chat box, make sure you include your name, and those you folks online or Zoom, and we will probably go to those questions after the live people that are at the podium have asked theirs. We've answered some of those questions, so that we'll hold us till the end to answer any of those. I know we're a good city, good town, good county, but be civil, be respectful to your questions, your comments. And this isn't the place for personal attacks. And this is, we will not discuss any personnel matters, tonight about anybody, of course, personnel. So I'll open it up to questions. If anyone wants to go to the podium and ask your questions.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for having this meeting tonight. I guess my overall question is twofold. Do I understand correctly the police chief is appointed by the city administrator and approved by the city council?
Ask that again, Mike.
If a police chief is hired by the city administrator and approved by the city council, correct?
Yes, through an appointment that has to be appointed by council, and usually it's a recruiting team, but the department reports to the city administrator.
Correct. Neil is an elected official.
Yes, sir.
So Neil has to answer to every single voting taxpayer of Shelby County.
Correct.
So I guess I want to make sure I understand that, because I've always had a great relationship. Unfortunately, many times it's a difficult time. But I think having someone that's going to be accountable to every single taxpayer in Shelby County has a lot more control over, he's got to answer to everybody. So I appreciate this meeting, and it's opened my eyes up a lot. So thank you.
Thank you.
And you're welcome to form a line that goes. First have to wait, so if you want to get in line, feel free to.
So, I'm Michael Hutter. I have a question. You made a comment that 4 positions within the city, the Harlan Police Department, have been open for a long time. You can't get, are having a hard time filling those. And then if it would go to the sheriff's department, you'd need 6 people. What incentives or what makes you think you're going to have an easier time filling more positions with a different department than, instead it's hard enough to fill 4, how's it going to be easier to fill, another 6 or 7?
It's a great question. So our goal is to hire 6 more deputies to our office to replace, if this happens in contract, essentially. So we would look to the current officers for the city of Harlan, obviously, to hopefully apply within our office for hiring. But then we also looked at, which I spoke to a little bit earlier, with the 17 or 18 members of staff in some specialized position and some specialized units and some room for growth. We hope that we can put that out there as a broadcast to some of these smaller agencies that like the small county or the small town feel, which we all love working in. But but it's a larger agency, if that makes sense, that we can hopefully draw some of those, whether they're neighboring counties or maybe even a little bit further, certified or uncertified applicants to apply for this kind of unique office setting where they do have an integrated and specialized position. We're hoping that that is a big enough draw, we can get a few more applicants.
Sure.
So,
Thanks, great question.
Hello, my name is Keith Kaufman. I own a West Side Lounge here in Harlan. I've heard a number of things about how they're going to reconstruct this, and I do like the idea of the protocol chain of command, so there's people to answer to. And I've heard a lot of other things that sound good. My question is, like everything else in this country anymore, what we do lack, and I'm not saying we do, but I'm concerned about how and what level of oversight we will have with this move so that we can determine if it was indeed a good move, and if it was, how can we best tweak it to make it even better? That's my main concern.
Good question, thank you, Keith. And that is something that we've discussed and I think will need to be constantly nurtured and worked towards. But specifically to answer that, more specifically, an expectation as well as in an agreement is that if it was unified, that law enforcement agency, either command staff or the sheriff, would be present at city council meetings in Harlan and in the formal setting, no less than once a month. The sheriff will update the council formally twice a year. In addition to every month, we'll have the council and the city will receive a detailed report of all the activity.
I have a question on that, which is fine, but is in every case, is it going to be another law enforcement officer, or is this going to be someone who does not have a dog in the fight?
Great question. And so part of the contract that we kind of spoke about a little bit, in a draft, right, a proposal, something that we can bring to you for answers tonight, is that it would be myself, my chief deputy, or my captain that would be there, that would have a dog in the fight, that would be able to speak to the changes that they can make within our office as a whole. So they would have something, it wouldn't be a road deputy that comes to you and says, I don't know, let me go back and ask the sheriff tomorrow. Because that doesn't make sense to send somebody like that to their team.
What happens?
Exactly. And part of this agreement, we're going to put a minimum on the amount of hours that we're patrolling the city. And that minimum weekly is 200 hours of patrol within the city. So we're not coming out telling you that we're going to give you the bare bones. We're giving you more than that as far as patrol goes. And when we get to full staff, this will answer some future questions, I'm going to assign scheduled deputies that stay within the incorporated city limits of Harlan. We're not going to leave the city of Harlan straight.
Thank you, Mr. Gore.
Yep, no problem.
Hi, my name is Frank Clark. I was born and raised here in Harlan. Worked for the city of Harlan for over 40 years. Facts and figures and supposition. I could argue every one of those points. But I'm not going to. Those of you that know me know that when I speak, it's from here. Okay? It's not facts and figures and supposition and all that crap. Excuse my French. I'm trying to censor myself too, just a bit. I have questions which are all rhetorical. I don't want answers because I'm not sure I trust political answers much anymore, but that's just me. I would just like people to think. Think. Okay? I grew up in the city of Harlan family where we were always trying to do one better than we should or that we have to. And we've had a police department since the 1800s. Used to be a town marshal. And I see this possible move as giving away a huge chunk of the identity of Harlan. A police department in this town, operating the way it has in the past, has been a staple, and I think it's been fairly successful. And so why are we giving that away? Why are we giving away the attention and stuff that we have given to our citizens for years and years and years? It seems like we're opening a door here. If we have, say, the street department loses 3 employees, is the next step going to be to have county roads take over our public works? If we have issues with our park department, are we going to have county conservation take that over? Are we going to stay in the city of Harlan, or are we going to become the city of Shelby County? Do I have answers to this dilemma that we're in right now? I really don't, because I've been on the outside for quite a while. But come on, folks, we fix our own stuff, we fix our problems, we move forward better and stronger than we ever have. That's what we used to do. And I am saddened beyond all repair that we even have to be here. What happened for this to allow, and I say allow, to get to the point where we are now? Retention, always been an issue. Why are we trying to find 4 people? What happened that 4 people ran from a sinking ship? That we have to be thinking about this today. And I know money is an issue and all that stuff, but community pride, I think, is an issue too. And we will lose a chunk of that if we give up our autonomy for the people that we have served since the 1800s.
Was that going to be answered? He did ask a question about how we got this far to where we're just going to give it up. I would like that answer.
It's a rhetorical question. He didn't want
I
to
know,
answer.
but it'd still be a nice answer.
Above the podium?
He said it's rhetorical.
I got it.
So still want to answer.
I'll let her go.
My name is Lisa Taylor, and 2 points. Well, 1 point, 1 question. I just looked it up. Ottawa is half the size of Harlan, so I would like information on towns the size of Harlan and see if they've done that. Done this, what we're talking about. And 2, you say that you're going to have 24/7 coverage in Harlan, but what happens when you said there's more coverage at night, that this would benefit? What happens when there's a call on the other side of the county? You have 1 officer in the county and 1 covering the town. Is the town deputy going to leave town to go cover this? Or say if there's a massive accident or call on the other side of the county, is that 1 officer in this town going to go to those calls to help out? So where does that coverage lie?
Yeah, great question. So currently, we have, well, to explain it just briefly, I guess, we have an evening and a night car out in the county, we have an evening and a night car in the city. If something absolutely major does happen like that, we get a bad 5-car pileup accident, the city of Harlan currently sends everybody down to help our guys out in the county. They abandon the city. It would be no different if a large call happened in the city of Harlan. We would be coming into the city of Harlan to assist. What would be helpful, though, is there would be an oversight sergeant out for each day that's a floater. So I'm going to schedule 3 cars to the city of Harlan that day and 3 cars to the county that day with an oversight sergeant and an investigator floater. So I've got 2 cars that can float in or out to do those assisting things. What I think will help the county, as well as the city, have quicker response time is when I've got an evening and a night car patrolling the incorporated cities of Harlan, and an evening and a night car out in the county, if I've got to call an Elkhorn, one of my county cars is going that way. But I can also take one of the city cars to go assist him, and I can bring my other county car into the city. Who's going to keep that? So it happens that way, the sergeant that's out for oversight that night with those people. We're going to get more deputies on site quicker without giving up a lack of coverage for the city or for the county. So it's a scheduling conflict that you're absolutely right. I have to figure out, I penciled it out, have I seen it work? No. But to the question about reserving the city of Harlan or reserving the county, that happens. That happens currently for both of them. But what we will have is a second on-call option with the staff and the admin chain that we have to get the next car out available. So hopefully that time is enough. That answers your question.
I would just offer and follow up to that the concept of mutual aid, I think it falls under that larger umbrella. So not only law enforcement, yet those in fire, for example, there are times that we provide mutual aid outside of our own Harlan Fire District, as an example, similar concept as to how that would operate. Again, we don't like to think that those larger events and catastrophes happen. Yet, you never say never, and yet there are times presently, even before a staffing situation, that has taken place because you go take care of and be sure you've got your others back and be as safe as possible.
My name is Amy Haas, and rhetorical or not, I would like Frank Clark's questions to be answered.
Well, I mean, Frank, you asked the question about, and I know we've been a long time police force in Harlan. We still have a law enforcement police force in Harlan. It's just changed as far as, I look at it, I guess, I'm not in law enforcement, I'm not in city administration, I guess I look at it as it's change, You admitted it, I mean, during your time, things changed a little bit, from the time you started till the time you ended. And it changed. And to be honest, when you left, and the gentleman sitting next to you left, we lost, it's hard to have that anymore. In any business right now, to get longevity with people that, want to stay in a job, and have pride in what they're doing. And I look at your area, I had a young man in my family that was in law enforcement, and I worried every time I hung up the phone, and I had no idea what he was doing. I know what you guys deal with. It's just one of those things that I don't think, this isn't against you, this isn't against, any of the other sheriffs who ever had, this isn't against any officers who wore a badge in Harlan or Shelby County. This is just something that we're trying to provide support for the folks who have, since you guys left. We've tried to figure this out, and we tried, and we're still trying to figure this out, and this seems to be the next step in where we're going right now. So I appreciate you doing that.
I get it, and this is one of the reasons I didn't want, why I asked the rhetorical questions, because I didn't want to get down into the weeds. If we had not had a systemic failure with people jumping ship, we wouldn't be here. We can hire a person I'm sorry, or 2. But when 4 people bail, for what reasons, we don't know, because those were personnel issues, now we're going, oh, what do we do? Oh, geez, we're going to have to turn this over to somebody else and let it be their problem. Historically, Harlan fixes their own stuff and moves forward better and stronger. We always have, even with a declining population. And we've served our citizens with a Harlan Police Department honorably and fairly for a long time. And I hate to see that go away.
Thank you, Frank. I would just follow up to Amy and possibly have a similar question back. For those that know me, in my history, I would echo, I nodded my head when Frank was talking about pride. I was born and raised here. I moved back here. I work here. I love this place. I will state that you talk about systemic failure. If I were to look back just personally over the last 10 months, again, are there things you've done differently? Sure. If we don't reflect and try to grow and learn, I think that's a bad approach. Sure, there are things personally, and maybe even recommendations to council, yet we are where we are. I'm looking at moving, I believe my responsibility, and also which is in my job description, is to continually evaluate effectiveness, efficiency, delivery of services, make suggestions, recommendations, and I could be doing that 24/7, 365 and still be short. Times are different, and we found ourselves here. Late 1960s, early 1970s, there was this consolidation of schools. I know there's still some feelings about that in terms of identity and pride. I sense it, I feel it, I understand it. Yet, if we don't respond and think differently, and again, I appreciate, well, we figure it out. Yes, and there may be more than one way to figure it out. And then I'll close with this, and I've been kind about this at some of our council meetings. There are changes going on at the state level. I know those who pick up a register, the newspaper, follow much on social media, that is making it much, much more difficult for municipalities and counties to maintain local control and home rule. There are some bills being introduced this year at the legislature that are mind-boggling. So the comment was made earlier, and I believe it was by you, Frank. It was made by you, and I've stated this publicly, I've stated it to, and I'll state it with this group. At what point do we turn over our streets to the DOT? At what point do our parks become run by the state DNR? At what point does our law enforcement become provided through the highway patrol? That's, in my opinion, the types of things we're seeing happen. Going to be in my time frame? Probably not. Yes. With some of the property tax reform, with some of the clawbacks that are happening to provide services, so essential fire, police, providing infrastructure, those are what we, basic essential services we all expect. We're also blessed with a lot of quality of life, non-essential services. Library, parks, pools. Yet, not sure at what point the elected bodies are going to have to say, in recommendations from administration, some of that non-essential stuff in the next few years or 10 years, have to be some tough decisions. We don't want to do that with law enforcement. And thus another reason, if we can be thinking of items like this, no matter how we got here, called systemic failure, we're here. What are some options? This is an option. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jamie Anderson. I got a couple of questions. Some of them are twofold. We arrived a couple minutes late, so I might have missed it. Are current police officers automatically going to be accepted into the sheriff's office, or are they going to have to go through an application process with all of the other masses coming in? Two, if they do come into the sheriff's office, there's a cost analysis and everything, and uniforming and all that. Is that already in the sheriff's budget to help them cross over into uniforms? I don't know how that currently works in there. There's also all of the rebranding of all of our police vehicles. Where is that money going to come from? We currently have, or have had, reserve officers. I know that's where our school resource officer came from. He started as a reserve officer, then moved his way up through, went to the academy, became a police officer, and then applied for that. Are we still going to have those positions available? And opportunities for people to get, like, put their foot in the doorway to a police department. And then finally, say we go into a 5-year contract for this, and us citizens were not happy with the services we've been given. Is the city and the council and everybody coming up with an exit strategy on how we are going to then deviate to get back to a police department and to the services that we are used to? Thank you.
Dave Brown, I have one comment and one question.
We're going to answer that.
Sorry, Dave. I'll pause for just a moment there. Love your ambition. And Jamie, good questions. Thank you. And certainly discuss those items and give attention to those. Do our best to address those. As far as cost of transition, certainly there will be ongoing equipment costs, vehicle costs, and part of with the payment or contract of services that will be factored in, just like equipping and outfitting your own department. So adding 6 positions, part of that contract agreement and amount will, because tasers have to be replaced, right? There are also assets. So for example, any of the existing police vehicles that are Harlan Police Department branded, if this were to happen, those would be assets that would go into transitioning over to minimize those startup costs. There wouldn't be a need to go purchase 5 more vehicles. There is some rebranding and wrapping that's fairly minor, but it's still a cost. As well as any of the equipment, and again, the sheriff and those in the, as far as the gear, service revolvers, all those assets would transfer over. So minimize that startup cost. Good question also about the exit strategy, and those would be, something such as that would be included within a contract or agreement, so that the elected bodies that are representing the citizens, as well as administration or staff that are working together and evaluating the services. If it's not working, can we find ways to rectify it or correct it? And if not, having a clause or elements in the contract that allow you not to renew with so much notice. So that would be prudent and would definitely be an element would be included in an agreement. And I don't know if I missed something else, so.
I can grab your other 2. As far as application process, yes, they would all have to apply to the sheriff's office. I would, in the next 6, actually the next 7 that I currently would hire, because I am down 1 position currently, and I'm not hiring at this time. I have not posted that position, but I'm down 1, so I will be hiring 7 deputies. Amongst those next 7 I hire, I will give them seniority within that pool based off their years of service as law enforcement. I just think that's fair. I have to honor some sort of their service that they've already given if they're certified law enforcement officer. At the startup time of this, I do not plan on absorbing a reserve program. I believe there will be enough moving parts as far as logistics go, in functionality with working this out initially, but it is something that can definitely be revisited down the road as this gets smoothed out. I think Gene spoke to the exit strategy, but yes, I believe in the contract we need some sort of an exit strategy as well if we're not happy with the product.
Again, my name is Dave Brown. I have a comment and a question. My comment is that sometimes we all have to embrace change. This is not a change that I feel is warranted or necessary. Number two, my question is, have we decided that we're going to bring this to a vote of the citizens of Harlan? Or are we just going to make this as a decision of the council? That's all.
Thank you, Dave, appreciate the comment. And as far as this, at least my understanding from the governing bodies is this would not go to any type of public vote or a special election. It would be acted on by both governing bodies. So those elected officials, the three board of supervisors, plus the 6 council members who would be voting members, is how that would be similar to other contracts for services, is how it would be intended to take place.
My name is Steve Davis. Like Frank, I was a long-time police department employee. I was on the committees that we looked at doing this, I believe, 20 years ago. And everybody we reached out to said it looks like it'll save money, and it does on paper, but the people that have implemented it said it doesn't. It costs more money. To your question, Washington County and the city of Washington's roughly our size. They did it for quite some time. And when they quit, the startup cost to go back was even higher. So that was a big loss of money for them. So yeah, you can put it on paper that it will save money or that it'll be cost neutral, but in reality, it hasn't been. I don't know why we could do it when other places tried the same thing and it didn't work. One of the other issues that I wanted to make, the Harlan Police Department has always had trouble maintaining a full staff. Our reserve program helped us do that immensely. And then we lost a lot of employees to the sheriff's office. I looked up wages. There was a police officer in Harlan, I'm not going to get into names, that made under $25 an hour. The city of Harlan has not reported their earnings yet to the newspaper. The county has. So the county's numbers I have are for the year. The city's I have their hourly wage. One of the police officers made less than $25 an hour, which would be roughly $50,000 a year. One of the deputies with roughly the same amount of service made $66,000 last year. I wonder why we're losing police officers. There's other benefits to the sheriff's department. You know, there's countywide, they have their own car. Neil's doing a great job. I like Neil. I think the sheriff's department's awesome. I'm nothing against them at all. But I think we need our own police department. And one other concern is if for some reason Neil decides to leave and go somewhere else, we don't know who our next sheriff's going to be. We all like Neil, and I think Neil's doing a great job, but we're not guaranteed of that. And our history in Shelby County, we don't have a lot of people running for public offices. So I'd like to consider that, and I also really think that the people of Harlan deserve their own police department, their neighbors policing them, people you're going to see in church, at the store, you're going to recognize, you're going to see them, and I think it made for a better police department for a lot of years, and I'd like to see it continue that way.
evening. So I guess it may be a combination of a comment and a question.
Give your name, please.
Sean Bates. Gene, you said that what we're looking at here with the United Law Enforcement, that it's an option. I am curious, are there any other options that have also been considered?
Thank you, Sean. Great question. And the other option would be to retool. It's been a struggle. Some of you may be familiar with things such as hiring bonuses. Offer hiring bonuses and sign-on bonuses. Have past experience with that in other fields, as well as talking amongst others. That tends to be a short-term band-aid to a longer-term problem. Additionally, the sheriff has spoken to, and I have spoken to, economies of scale. By having a larger team with more opportunities for growth, to recruit under that identity with more opportunities for the lateral transfers, more specialization, can make it more attractive. Again, totally get the hometown pride. We have our department. Totally understand that. Yet, this is one of the options. The other is to retool. I believe it was Steve Davis who commented on one of the trends that's gone on a long time is that smaller municipal police departments in certainly small town, or mid-size to small town, have traditionally been training grounds and great development grounds for sheriff's offices, highway patrol. That's how it's existed, right? And there's been ebbs and flows where more officers have gone. And in today's day and age, regardless of the profession, people will jump jobs for a quarter an hour. So, one theory might be, well, let's just have the same wages between both departments. And thus, some of our police department won't go for 20 cents an hour, just standardize union agreements between, I guess that could be considered. Or do you make it all consistent and minimize and take that element out of the equation of guesswork and make it all consistent? That's this option.
My name is June Schilling Swanson, and I'm familiar with law enforcement because my son is a law officer. I back all of you, and I appreciate absolutely everything you guys do. However, I do think that Harlan is making a mistake if we go this direction. The wage, like Steve said, is an issue. I researched, checked things out. Every town has a little bit of a hiring issue. However, why is it that small towns who offer a better wage can keep their officers? Places like Dunlap, Woodbine, and other small towns around the area can keep their officers. Yes, some of them leave, go to the sheriff's departments, some of them leave, go to other towns, but for the most part, they're still there. And that is the good thing, because it is a community. That's the community. You get used to your officers. You know who's there. You know who you can count on. Not that you can't count on the sheriff's department, because you can, and they're a great backup. I know many of you guys. However, it's nice to know, hey, I know him. He lives 3 blocks down the street. I can count on him. And that's what a community wants. They want that ability to count on those in their community. And I know a lot of the officers on the sheriff's department don't live within Harlan. They live outside of Harlan, and that's fine. They have that right. But I really think that we need to think about the wage, just like Steve said, we need to think about what our community stands for. Just a statement.
Thank you, June, for the comment. In terms of residency, and this is not only in law enforcement, yet other county and city positions, years ago, many employers had a residency requirement, and that just continued to shift. I know of most of our current police department staff, only 2 live in town. And some of the sheriffs, and from our sheriff's office, over half of those live right in the city of Harlan. So some sense of that can be maintained. I know of other departments that have had to expand, so those in the community smaller than us, that they've expanded to where, even some larger than us, that will go up to 45 miles in terms of response time. So again, just changing trends, not saying it's right or wrong, yet it is different.
Darren, one question, what does your patrolling system look like? Are you planning the same 6 guys patrolling Harlan, or are you going to rotate them in and out throughout the
Good question. Actually, I plan on rotating them there. And the reason I plan on doing that is for several reasons. When you get young officers hired, they're ambitious, they want to go drive some area. They want a bigger sandbox to play in, is kind of the term we use within the sheriff's office. And I think that is part of the reason why we as the sheriff's office do take some of those employees from the police department we're hiring. You know, why some of those employees leave us to go to the state patrol. They do want a bigger sandbox, essentially. So I think if I continue to rotate that amongst those 6 and just keep it cycling, I mean, we're only talking 17 people, including myself and my cleaning staff. We're still going to know who each and every one of us are and counting. But I think we can keep it fresh for those guys and keep it new to them, keep them attached to it a little bit where they enjoy what they're doing, and hopefully retain people up to retirement in the sheriff's office. I can speak to my staff currently. I've got a great staff, and I'm blessed with the staff I currently have. We're down to 1 right now. But in the near future, I don't foresee any of my guys leaving. They love what they do. We enjoy working together. And every single one of them is excited about the opportunity to expand our staff and hopefully grow our team.
Eric Anderson. Gene, you've used the term several times, contract for services, and I just want you guys to explain what that means. Does that mean the city of Harlan and the taxpayers of Harlan are now going to pay the county for the services of the sheriff's department in the city? Or what, you've used that term several times, and I just don't understand what that means, so I'd like you to explain that. But are basically the taxpayers in the city now going to pay the county to have you guys patrol the city? Is what I don't know if that's the same thing or not.
Thanks for the question, Eric. And let's see if this answer, but in direct answer to your question, yes. The city would pay the county for these services to have dedicated patrol, as the sheriff alluded to, out of the chute, no less than 200 hours a week, and continued dedicated coverage. Very similar to what I mentioned too for ambulance service. The county, the city, and the hospital, contract and pay for a private ambulance through Medevac to make that happen. Does that answer your question?
My name is Jerry Jacobson. I was just wondering, normally when the city council gets an idea like this, don't you bring it before the city council and then they say, yeah, look into it and make a plan? Why was so much effort taken to not let the community know about it? Even the Facebook post that you put on it, I had to blow it up to even see what it said. It wasn't like town meeting or anything. It was very small print. I mean, it seems odd.
Thanks for the question, Darren. I'll comment first, I guess, since it's really directed towards city. Is that, as I alluded to earlier, as far as any time that there's things to be evaluated, could be during tumultuous times, could be during normal times. It doesn't matter the situation, trying to constantly evaluate improvement, efficiencies, effectiveness. The council has been apprised as far as challenges of our recruiting and hiring. So that wasn't anything new. And then as far as over the past 45 to 60 days talking to the sheriff's office, again, we explained earlier to even have some meaningful content and information to have this public forum. As far as the size of, we've tried to use social media. Again, appreciate the newspaper that we provided information last week. If we would have said 60 days ago, look forward in 60 days, and I don't even know, I know from my end, I didn't know this is where it's always important to have public input, certainly on something, and that's something I recommend to council as far as something of this matter in nature. This is important. This is much different than, I'm going to add a little levity here, it's quite a bit different than changing a stop sign or putting up some no parking, right? We get that. So I don't know if that addresses your question fully.
Not really.
Okay. So that's how we got here.
So from standing there in the back, it sounds pretty much like you've already made a decision. And when was that made?
I'll be first to address that, and I guess any of the other individuals here. Let me be really clear. The decision is not mine. I don't vote. I don't make those decisions. What I'm hired to do is look into, provide evaluations, considerations. So as far as a decision, that has not been made from either governing board. I guess I would, Bryson or Mayor Jay. Although again, the mayor doesn't vote either. There are a number of council members here, as I'm looking around, I think most all of them are here. That's where that takes place. But any other comments to that?
I guess I'll just comment real quick to that. I don't vote either. Obviously, I don't make the decisions. I push it to the board of supervisors and the parties that be. But when I was asked to create something, and to do my job, essentially, like Frank alluded to earlier, what the citizens of Harlan want and expect is something better, stronger to serve the citizens. That's when we went into conversation to develop a plan that we could give that to not only citizens of Harlan, but citizens of the county. And that's where we're at right now, is we have a plan, we have an idea, and we're looking for input. There is no vote that's been taken, but I would have been reluctant to sit back and just let things continue to unfold the way they were unfolding. So I did step forward to do those things, Frank, you mentioned, make it better, stronger to serve the citizens of the city and the county, because you all vote for me, not just the citizens of the county.
I will have a vote in the matter, but it will first have to pass the city council before it goes to the supervisors. So if it does pass the city council, then we'll take a look at it as supervisors. So.
I do not vote anymore. I used to vote. The seat I sat in before, but I have been part of the discussions. I have been part of the city did talk to Neil. We reached out to him, and we would go back to where, what are the options? And we've been exploring that option. That first option has been in place for a long time. And trying to make that option work has been explored, for the whole time I've been sitting in the mayor's chair, and we've reached a point where maybe that option isn't quite where we need to go right now. Financially, manpower-wise, recruiting, maintaining, that option didn't seem to be working. And it's okay, we need to come up with another option. So that is where we are right now. We are here to give you what the option could be and find out what people think of that option. So that's why we're here. There has not been a vote on anything. So.
Kevin Chadwick, I don't know where to start. You want to be here in the morning? Frank? I grew up in this community also. My mother was a dispatcher in the 70s. So I've been through a lot of sheriffs, a lot of chiefs of police. I agree with the community. We don't have any say in this. Is there any conflict within the city council or the supervisors on voting on this? I mean, when did we get say? When did we lose that? The taxpayers. When did we lose the choice?
My name's Stephen Cody. My kids live here. I own property here now. I'm getting to move down here. I've been all over the world. I've worked. I manage 1,700 people at a time. And when I read this proposal, okay, there's nothing confident, right? This is just a proposal. I see the, improving retention, improving employee satisfaction. It starts from the top. If you haven't got it, then it's the top that's the problem. 34 years I've done this, managed people, managed large numbers of people. My retention was perfect in the sense that I kept a lot of my people, but it was because I enjoyed working for them, I enjoyed working with them, and I did everything I could do to help them. That's one comment I'd like to have an answer to. But when I look at this, I keep thinking, the first thing that came to my mind was defunding the police. Literally, that's the first thing that came to my mind when I heard this. And that scares the daylights out of me. Because when you defund the police, yeah, you've got a great proposal, but when you defund the police, crime goes up like a skyrocket.
I appreciate that comment, and in terms of, I don't believe that defund the police has been stated, and so that was misunderstood, and there would be, as we just alluded to, if this were to be in place, there would be a payment for service, as we do with a lot of other contracts. So there's no defunding to this whatsoever, and contracting for service under one agency, and specific to the city of Harlan. So just to clarify that.
Steve Lytle. I kind of agree with Kevin here. Nobody said anything about city council gets to vote on it. Conflict there. 2 people from the sheriff's office are on it. And trends are changing. How many towns this size that still have a city administrator? Why can't the mayor and council take care of that? Also, to me, it feels like you're kicking our officers to the curb. They've been over backwards since the chief has been out.
You're here.
Steve, I believe the question, in addition to your comments, as far as the council members, there are two members of the council that work for the county, as you said, one in the sheriff's office, one in the jail. And as far as conflict of interest, and to not create any perception of a conflict of interest, if that does come to a vote, it would be recommended that they recuse or not vote on that. So, I want to make more of that.
Six-member council.
Bill McCarty. Hey, Neil, just a question. Like the city sometimes helps you and you help the city. Do you also help other counties and are you taken out of the county for those services?
Yeah, great question. We do help across the boundary of another county. They help across our boundary. Some calls even take ourselves as well as our police officers currently to another county. So it just depends. You know, we're certified law enforcement officers for the entire state of Iowa. And if we've got somebody behind us taking care of the home base essentially, that we can go lend a hand, we're going to lend that hand because usually it gets lent back.
And then for Gene, question, do you have the ability, does the city have the ability to match the wages currently that the county is paying? And how can the county pay for it if you don't give them the money to pay for it? Do you see what I'm talking about? Where's that savings? So
I know it was for Gene, but I actually wrote the dollar figure proposal as far as the contract would go, work those numbers a little bit. And obviously I would bring the officers that apply for me in at a different wage scale because we are at a different wage scale for the county. The city of Harlan is an 8-man department currently. You have 4 people. I do have an opening currently, but if I hire 6, that allows me to use funds. We use the term cost neutral, but it allows me to use funds in the contract to pay those 6 people instead of 8. I'm not paying the 2 highest paid people for the city of Harlan because I have the admin staff at the sheriff's office that we can handle that. So we're paying a smaller number of people in order to increase those wages to what the county is currently paying. Does that answer that?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I know that it's probably not a popular decision, but just from a pure business perspective, I'm a businessman, it does make sense to consolidate, especially as the county's populations continue to decline. There's just no consolidation, but you can wait until it's a crisis situation and there's no officers in the city. So.
Bill, thank you for the question, and just follow up on the sheriff's. So, again, looking out, so I'm sure this is on many of your minds. Well, again, why doesn't the city just match those same wages? It's simple, right? Yeah, if we just again reflect back on some things we evaluated, discussed, and some of the benefits we see is that, again, one single command staff, greater opportunities for growth and development, streamlined training in the same training. That can happen in one agency with the same wages. And in addition, and again, you're talking to a hometown guy, so I understand the pride thing. So another way to look at it, and I'm not asking to influence, so you say, well, we know these 6 or 8 Harlan officers. Well, we've got 17 or 18 officers now that are going to be rotating in and out of the community that now an opportunity to have 17 or 18 more, 17 or 18 that we know and have our back, which happens today. Again, there's a lot of backup and support presently, yet it's one agency with 17 or 18 versus 11 and 7, or 11 and 8 today. So it provides that much more opportunity as another way to look at it.
My name is Jackie Cody. I own a beef ranch here in town along with my husband. Question for Neil, kind of for city administrators as well. How many applications do you guys get for law enforcement when you put an application out? And with that being said, if we had people applying for the city position and people applying for the sheriff's department, who can hire right now for the city if we had 10 applications out? Who's allowed to hire with our chief out right now? Who's in charge of the sheriff's or the city department right now? Who's our acting chief of police?
So Sergeant Peterson, Sergeant is still here, maybe not, but he is our supervisor and leader at this point. And as far as hiring, we would follow the current testing requirements and hiring process. I'm confident we would lean on the sheriff's office, as well as even there's an outside entity that could help with that hiring and screening process.
So are we advertising for that position? Are we not?
Yes, we've had an open position for 3 months, still posted on state sites and locally. So to answer that, yes.
Okay. How many people are actually at the academy right now? Or do we have an academy going on training right now, Neil? Do you know?
Sorry. There is an academy going on, but we don't have anybody currently in the academy. So I think your question, Jackie, was how many applicants do we normally get?
Yeah.
I saw you coming just a touch late. We kind of talked about how that declined over the course of time.
I was here for that, I didn't really.
Okay, perfect. Our last one we hired, we posted for one opening, probably been a year ago. We had roughly 10 applicants for that. So, but I'll say, even just go back 5-6 years, that would be 35 applicants. So you're 100% accurate, it has declined tremendously.
I'm just saying, are we reaching out to those people when they have the academy that we're looking? How are we telling people about Harlan, Iowa, and whether it's the sheriff department or the city? How are we talking about it?
So when I post across social media websites, we put it out on public forums, there's law enforcement web pages that we blast it to. We don't actually put it out to the academy. Once we hire them, we then send them to the academy, if that makes sense. So that's how we do it. I can't really speak to how the city of Harlan currently is supposed to do it. Yeah, majority at the academy already have a job. Or we
Okay,
or have
I just didn't know how that works, so I wanted to clarify on that.
Absolutely.
My name is Ray Sorensen. You said that the county, or the city was going to have to pay the county to have us be in the town of Harlan at this time. What's that going to cost us, and where's that money going to come from? And you said our taxes aren't going up.
So the city would still budget for that, Ray, thank you for the question. We would still budget for that just as we do today, and it would be paid through a contract service versus paying city employees. So that would not result in an increase in taxes. So, for example, we're budgeting for next year already. So we've got police department funds budgeted for next year, and if we were in agreement, those funds would be used to pay those contract services.
What is the cost of the contract services is what he asked.
Same as what we budgeted, pay for right now. They were right around $828,000. What is that? It's just going from one bucket to the next one. Right?
Yeah, so the question was, you're looking specifically, so our last 4-year average is just over $920,000 for law enforcement service, okay, for our police department. Again, these are not final if this were to happen, but at least from all of, again, why would we come and have this conversation? I think it's a great example. So there's at least some information and some specifics to pass along. In terms of contractor service, it would be about $100,000 less. And I made the comment earlier that we'll be proposing to council, if this were to move forward, that following up to this, would like to recommend we have a full-time code enforcement nuisance officer that we've not had in the city of Harlan. That would help with those nuisances, property maintenance, would also help our building inspector with enforcement and safety. That's why if that were to happen, it would be more of a cost control.
Well, that's another real quick follow-up question. Neil, so when I heard you talk about it, we're actually in essence, we're almost decreasing 2 officers so that you have enough money to pay the ones you have, which does make sense. But why doesn't, just from this perspective, what's the advantage of having you do that versus just telling the city to hire less officers and pay their officers more? What's the advantage of it all being?
I think I understand that question correctly, so grab me if I'm wrong on this one. But to hire the same amount of officers or less officers, say the city hires 6 and pays them more, where's the administration or the oversight of those individuals? Where's the next call out for those individuals? Where's the backup, the training, the help that those people need? We're looking at hiring 6. Currently, the department's at 4. So from what it currently has, I think we're going to increase it. I think overall, we're going to increase the efficiency of it because we can't keep those trainings in-house and we can be one cohesive unit. So if that answers that as far as the admin side of things and the oversight.
Yeah, that makes sense.
My name is Dan Schumacher. There's been a lot of great questions, some not answered, but I mean, I can't believe we're here. I know you, Neil. I've known you for a long time. Steve, Frank, RJ, Butler. I mean, guys, it's great to have you here. It's great that you serve our community. And I understand these things have happened in the HPD, and I hope the person finds his way. But it's always been nice to be able to know their first names. I don't know every sheriff's person, well, Cody Eccles too, but it was always nice that I had their cell phone number. If I had a problem, I could text them. I didn't have to call the PD to make a complaint. That they would get on it. I know Frank, I bugged him quite often, Steve, Yamada. And it's more of a statement that it's sad that we're this far, but what and how, I still want that, how do we get this far, where we're at today, and why have we not put another person in the position to take the helm and try to restore the Harlan PD instead of waiting and waiting and waiting for what we've done? I understand it's a great proposal. I know it possibly could save us money, sounds good on paper. Steve Davis had a great point too, where he's actually seen these numbers and it didn't work out. And I also worry about you said how many deputies are going to be on duty, other businesses that late at night that are closing. Are we guaranteed there's going to be a cop in town that protect them from not being robbed? It's kind of nice knowing that somebody you know really well is on duty at all times. And it is sad that we're going this far. And I would hope that your spot's voted, that I think it would be easier on you guys if you let the city and the county vote on this versus allowing the supervisors and the city council to vote on it. I mean, we are the taxpayers. We should have the right to say in this too, besides take their lead.
Just real quick, is it already been decided, like, when the city council is going to vote on this? are there any plans in place to maybe poll the citizens to see where the majority of our public looks at? I know there's 100 different varieties of surveys and stuff out there that you guys could choose from. Put a link in the paper on the social media that you use to inform us of this. That way you guys get a greater sense of what our communities want, not just Harlan, but all the surrounding communities that the Sheriff's Office already serves.
Thank you, Jamie. As far as there been any dates set, there have not been. If this were to come before the bodies, I expect it will be in the next couple of meetings, if that does go to that point. As far as polling the community, I guess we can lean on or discuss that with both entities, how we go about that. There are a lot of tools out there, be it through Google or I think SurveyMonkey. Is that kind of what you're thinking? I mean, things of that nature?
Just to give the community more of a sense of input.
And that has its merits, it has its drawbacks, so I think that's a good question, possible idea to explore.
Me again, Kevin Shelby. I agree with you. We're the one paying your wages. We're the one paying for the stuff in the county. Why don't we have a choice? Why don't we have a vote? You know, I hear a lot of pros, but I haven't heard anybody say anything about the cons. It's always good, and it's always for one side of the fence.
Greg Black, put me on this. You asked me the question, and I don't know if any of you will know it. Is the petition of the citizens an option in election for a decision like this? You know, sometimes you can get a petition by the citizens that brings it to a vote. I don't know if that's an option here. Just asking a question. Mike Colby, I'm sorry.
Hi, Mike, former mayor. I don't know the answer, but we'll definitely research that. Unless someone else up here happens to know that. But we certainly can get an answer to that.
We may take a pause here for a short bathroom break, and then maybe we'll get to the online questions. So in about 10 minutes, we'll come back. Any more public questions or comments?
Hi everybody, my name's RJ Gilbert, for those of you who don't know me. I didn't really plan on speaking tonight, but I got a good group of men back there, thought I'm going to speak for a little bit. So, there are 6 of us deputies that do live in town, and we bring our families here, we invest in the community, and you're going to get that same service from us. When we talk about wages, the 5 deputies back there, including myself, we did not leave the police department because of the wages. We've all talked about it. Those are not why we left. We left because of Neil, Cody, who's not here, and Chad. We wanted that leadership. We wanted what they built. And so that's why we went to that department. But my fear is, if we don't do this, we got 3 other really good officers back there with the Harlan Police Department that want this to happen, and we're going to lose them too. That's why I'm up here talking. So that's a little bit of piece that I want to talk about. That's all I got.
Again, Neil, I talked to you at intermission there about how many hours you were talking about patrolling Harlan. Can you tell us how many hours they are currently patrolled?
Yeah, we brought that up a little bit. I would set a minimum standard of 200 hours, and that's just an out-of-the-gate minimum. If you take 24/7, you're at 168 hours. With Harlan Police Department, currently has staff of 4, 12 hours a day, 12, 12, 12, 12. You're not leaving room for sick, you're not leaving room for vacation, you're not leaving room, I mean, they're busting it. They're giving you guys a service, and Sergeant Peterson and the rest of them are working their butts off to do that. But that comes out to 168. So minimum, you're gonna get at 200. So you're gonna get more than one person at by 24/7. Guys, I foresee that number almost being doubled, to be honest with you. We're currently working in the city the way it is. We're helping out in the city. We're making traffic stops in the city. We're enforcing codes in the city. We're doing our thing in the city right now because the city is within Shelby County. My guys feel like this is already part of their home. And I think we just want the departments to feel the same way too as one unit.
Steve Lytle again. RJ said something about the leadership. Isn't that under Eugene? Aren't you responsible for the chief of police? As far as two council members that are with the sheriff's office being on the city council, they still have influence. So why don't you let the rest of the town vote?
Well, I think he addressed that we would look into whatever we can do, I guess, whatever, if we're required to do something, or we need to do something as far as a public, we're talking about service market and all that kind of stuff, but that is something I guess we will look into, so. As far as this is what we're talking about tonight, so.
Did my question don't get answered?
Your question is to the police department reports to me.
Yeah, you're in charge of them?
I am in charge of them.
Okay, then leadership, what's the problem with leadership?
That's one of the reasons we're here. And as I said, one of my responsibilities is to continue to look at opportunities to be more effective and efficient, and knowing when things may not be going as well. And this is one of those options being considered.
And how many months has this leadership problem been going on and nothing's been done about it?
How many months?
Yeah.
There's probably 2.5, 3 months in terms of the current situation. So.
And why hasn't our chief policeman, somebody stepped into his spot?
Won't discuss that specific personnel situation yet. Again, Sergeant Peterson, I know, is no longer here, and we have had that supervisor in charge or leadership position in the department. And again, hats off to those, again, the Harlan Police Department, as well as the partnership with the sheriffs to continue to provide our citizens coverage. So, again, be very forthright, it's not been ideal, but as citizens and what we've tried to do and what I've been conscientious of is not leaving our town empty-handed.
Yeah, that's enough. Waste.
If there aren't any more public comments or questions, we will look at some of the chat from the Zoom.
First question is from Emily Vidone. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly. 7-year resident of Harlan. I've heard a lot of the pros, but moving forward, what are our top 3 cons of consolidating departments?
I guess I can test. Okay. I guess I can speak to that a little bit on my end, and probably let Gene wrap up. We might have a different set of cons tonight. Cons are honestly some of the logistical headaches that me and my administrative staff are going to have to get the process of this out and rolling. Obviously, perfect situation is we're not here talking tonight. But we are here talking tonight. So in my opinion, that's one of the cons. The unknowns that we don't know, that we haven't planned for, that are going to come out of the woodworks, we can plan for those. Even though they're unknowns, we don't know what they are. And I guess third, in my opinion, is, you know, the sheriff's office has been a staple as well since 1850s, earlier than that even. So I don't want to see the Harlan Police Department lose an identity, but I want the citizens of this community as well as the county to be as safe as possible and have the best services that we can give them. And I think this is what we're putting together today. So the con would be for the city to lose their police department, but sometimes with the loss there's a gain, and I feel like this is one of those situations from my standpoint.
That's a good question, and I think at least one of mine, two of mine would be similar to sheriffs in terms of the unknowns, and it'd be nice to have guarantees. So, but I'm confident, at least with what the partnership, not only with the sheriff but other county operations, those things should be worked through, but it's just not having that guarantee. Another con is the pride. The pride, that's different. Doesn't make one feel real good. It doesn't give me a warm fuzzy. And then the third is knowing that for a majority of our staff that are in law enforcement for the police department, is that they look forward to this change in opportunity.
The next question is from Suzette Bates Leal. Just a comment. I think change is hard for the majority of individuals and communities, but as stated, looking at the trends of declining population within the county, I would support this being explored to make the change of a unified law enforcement group. I believe this to be beneficial for cost shared, joint training, and oversight. This is another question from Emily Watts. Are you talking about eliminating RPD? How is that us as a town growing? Here's another one from Emily Watts. And what does that cost look like on paper? What will be the initial number to rebrand our PH to county PD? I think she meant.
We've just hearing comments here, we've already touched on that, but just for a quick recap, looking at numbers, we estimate the contract to be for service on $820,000 a year, and we don't have an exact number right now on rebranding some of those items. Yet it would be fairly minor in the grand scheme of things, unless the sheriff be able better in terms of reskinning the cars.
Honestly, the best interest of all the taxpayers, I think the rebranding process of something like this, you might see, if this goes forward, you might see those Harlan police officers back there with the same exact uniform they're wearing, but it might say sheriff instead of police on it for a little bit. We're gonna work that in. The cars are gonna get in my opinion, they're gonna get a star that's gonna say sheriff on them. We're gonna go as minimal as we can as far as cost to the taxpayer, and we're gonna stair step that in as the process moves forward.
Next question is from Emily Fidone. What will this do for our current response time for the residents of Harlan if left solely to the country?
I spoke to that a little bit, but it will actually increase the response time, in my opinion, or at least keep it the same. We will continue to have somebody within the city limits of Harlan, as well as some rover vehicles out there in the county that can come in and assist. And when a vehicle shows up, it's going to say sheriff on it. When a deputy shows up, it's going to say sheriff on it. You're going to know who's coming to your residence or facility when you call 911. I don't foresee it slowing us down in any way, shape, or form. I actually see it being a benefit in response time.
To follow up on that, and I meant to comment on it earlier, that just because of geography and how our county and towns look, the fact that our county seat and where we're at in the city of Harlan is centrally located is quite honestly a benefit in something like this. And also that we don't have 3 or 4 similarly sized population centers. Thus, I guess maybe you'd call it luck. But I think geographically, in fact, things would be headquartered here. They have been headquartered here. Just that natural, you'll naturally, as we have in the past, but even with this, have more presence because of being centrally located in headquarters here.
That's all we have. There are still people being admitted, but those were the only questions with listed that have people's first and last names.
I guess I had a question, Eric Kura. Is there any record of how many hours the police department come out of the city limits to help the deputy? And is there any hours of how many, is there any record of how many hours the deputies come in and help the Harlan department? And what's the offset and how close are those numbers? Is it lopsided, or is it close, or is it no difference at all?
Within the last year? Is that what we're looking at?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, so the question was, is there a record on how many hours or time frames the Harlan Police Department has gone out to help the county deputies versus how many hours or times has the county deputies come in to help Harlan in the city?
Yep.
Okay. I don't have that record as far as the exact hour. Are you with me today? I could go back, research through detailed logs and pull that record. But I can tell you from experience, especially over the past year and a half, we spend a lot of time in town assisting Harlan Police Department, and it's no fault to any officer or any individual. It's a lack of personnel, and we do have some guys that have been out of our office 5, 10, 15, 20, 23, 24 years with a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge. And we utilize that, whether we're a phone call helping them out, whether it's, hey, we'll help you out in this case. We just utilize that a lot, and they'd be foolish not to utilize some of that experience. If you stop learning day to day, then you're behind the 8 ball. So I can say that I believe that we come into town or are in town more than they come up to assist us. They absolutely will come assist us when we ask for it. But I think we trump that card as far as coming to town. And a lot of that is what Gene spoke to. Geographically, I kind of unfortunately became a desk jockey when I was elected sheriff, and I'm in town a lot, but I am eager when a call comes out and they've got one Harlan officer that I shoot up from my desk and I'm headed out the door to help. And that goes with a lot of guys that are in our office doing paperwork or dealing with things in the office or in the jail that they're right out there to help the Harlan Police Department.
This question was from Julie Schneider. Whose expense will it be when you decide to bring the police department back and want to go back to city police like Ottawa is wanting to do? Also, why hasn't the main problem in the police force been taken care of as soon as Frank left, the problems began?
I believe there are 2 questions there. The first is in terms of if it's not working, what's it look like to hit the reverse switch? And that would be also included in an agreement as to how things would be handled. Just as if this were to happen, if this some assets spoke to things such as equipment and vehicles that would be transferred to minimize the startup costs, minimize the costs to everyone's taxes. Same vice versa, if it wasn't working, we would have that same discussion, as well as an element of the agreement that allowed for that discussion and negotiation to happen. And then the second was, in terms of, I think it was more personnel related, so I'm not going to talk about personnel, but I will just speak about leadership change. And I think that was more the heart of the question, that as leadership changes in your organization, similar, in this case, law enforcement, when you look to groom and develop and help nurture and develop and hope that that will continue. In some cases, that doesn't always work, right? And this is not about, again, one specific individual. Yet, when leadership changes, the former chief and assistant were here. They left. They had their style and approach. That worked for years. Was that always right? Maybe, maybe not. But certainly was a shift in how that looked. And so that's certainly been a contributing factor. And the guy who's speaking, I think it was spoken by Mr. Lytle who left, that yes, that is my responsibility. And again, it'd be easy to put my head in the sand and walk away, yet in my experience, that's not the way to approach it. And to at least study this and provide options and have this type of forum, I believe is what's needed for in our elected body.
Another one from Julie Schneider. Have you looked into a new police chief for the city of Harlan?
Well, once again, we'll not get into the specifics of a personnel matter, yet that could be considered.
This is from Emily Fedone. I understand our police department is not in the best shape for numbers of reasons. The question is, what honest efforts have went into fixing our department? Or was it left to sit paving the pathway for consolidation you're bringing before us today?
If I understood the question, Jane, from, I believe this was Emily, that what meaningful efforts, right? As far as, I know, with leadership, providing feedback, talking with the department. I know there's a few individuals back there that have been part of a number of department meetings, additional trainings offered. So things that I believe most organizations would try to do. In my experience, there's not a magic pill to solve those things, but those are the types of things that have been addressed or attempted. I believe that addresses that question anyway.
I think we're going to wrap it up for tonight. Appreciate everybody coming. This was basically to exchange some information and receive some information, comments, questions. Again, this hasn't been voted on. It has to be voted on, with the city council and the board of supervisors before anything would actually change. So, appreciate everybody coming out. Thank you.